Hello, good evening, and welcome to my channel. In today's episode, I'm going to turn these potatoes into soup. And if you'd like to see me do that, stay tuned. About 2 weeks ago, give or take, I bought a 5-pound bag of russet potatoes. I brought them in the house. I placed them on the cabinet with every intention of processing them. I've had other projects to take precedent, so I've been working on them. I went to process these potatoes yesterday and realized that these potatoes had begun to go off. One potato smelled wretched. So I took all the potatoes out of the bag. I tossed that one potato aside. I rinsed and washed these potatoes, and now I need to process these potatoes because I don't want to lose any more than the 3 potatoes I already have lost. One potato was completely disgusting, smelled horrid, and was beginning to ooze. 2 potatoes were soft, not usable, and the rest of these potatoes, they seem to be okay. So today I'm going to rinse them once more, peel them, chop them, and prepare them for soup. I'm not going to show you the process of me rinsing and peeling potatoes. That's relatively simple, and I think that anyone watching this video can manage to rinse and peel potatoes. So once I have these potatoes rinsed and peeled, I'll be right back as I begin to chop. If you find you have a potato that has dark spots, strange blemishes, it's spotted up, and as you've begun to peel it, you need to get rid of those. What I do is I take my potato peeler and I will dig those areas out. I won't leave them on my potato. If it's to the point to where it looks really bad, I will cut it, try to cut it out, and cut that piece out. You don't want any potatoes that look like it has any kind of damage. You want to get rid of all of that. And then you put the pieces that are left. And I'm going to put mine in a bowl of water. I have processed potatoes before, and I wasn't happy with the outcome. Over time, the potatoes look like they really began to degrade. And I want to try a different method that I found on YouTube. So as I am digging out these spots on this potato that really give me question, I am placing the potatoes in a container of water over to my right. And I did find another potato. As I rinsed them again, the potato had a soft spot in it. And I don't want to fool around with any potatoes that have soft spots. So all of my cast off went into my compost bin. So now I'm going to take the potatoes that are sitting in water. I'm going to put new water in this container, and I'm going to slice these potatoes up, and I'll show you that. I'm not making any fancy cuts to my potatoes. I'm just cutting them in fourths and cubing them and placing them in cool to cold water. I'm going to let them sit in that cool water for a few hours. As I mentioned, I tried canning potatoes before. I did not like how they looked over time and excuse me, in the jar, and so I'm trying something different, and I saw this on YouTube, so I'm really hoping that this is going to work. So I'm just going to let them sit in the cold water for a few hours. And once that's done, I'm going to jar them up. So let me finish cutting up these potatoes, because cutting up potatoes are relatively simple. And even if you haven't cut up potatoes, you've seen me cut up a few. So you should be able to make this happen for yourself. So I'll be back once I finish cutting up these potatoes. Now that my potatoes have been cubed, I'm going to let them sit in this water for an hour. I've already changed the water once. and the water still remains cloudy. Hopefully the cold water is pulling out some of the starch. And I'm going to let this sit for an hour. I'm going to rinse them one final time before I jar them up. So I'm going to now make some broth while I wait for these potatoes. I am going to use my Instant Pot to make my broth. Now I have filled it up to the max line, which is 2/3. I am going to add 4 things. I'm going to add some chicken bouillon powder. And this is a tablespoon. I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons. Like so. I'm going to add a couple of bay leaves. I'm going to add some crushed black pepper, and in my pepper mill I have black pepper, mustard seed, and cilantro seed. So I'm just going to crack as much of this as I choose. All right. And last but not least, I am going to put a little bit of white wine. Choose whatever wine you like, preferably a wine you would drink. This is a Pinot Grigio. And I'm going to pour that in. Hopefully it doesn't take me over the fill line. I might be pushing it just a smidgen. Now I'm going to turn this on simmer, and I'm going to let it simmer for 30 minutes. I'm going to give it a stir, and then I'll be right back. It is now time to fill my jars. Now my jars have very hot water in them to keep the jars warm. The potatoes are room temperature, so I'm going to pour out a couple of jars and get these ready to be jarred up. I'm just going to pour those out like that. Now my potatoes still have water in the bowl, so I'm going to move them closer to me, and I don't have a lot of space over here, so hold on just 1 second. Okay, I have the potatoes closer to me, and I've poured out some of the water. So now I'm just going to take my funnel and fill up my jars, not all the way full, but about half of the, well, it says 1/2 at the bottom, near the half line, maybe between the half and the 3/4 line at the bottom. I'm going to fill up my jars with the potatoes, just like so. And I'm going by the lines I see on the jars here, just to give myself an accurate amount. And I'm going to fill up this jar. See, 2 of my potatoes have some spots, so I'm going to cut those off. I'm not going to use those 2. I'm actually looking at my potatoes as I am putting them in the jar to make sure that I did not miss any blemishes. I don't want any blemishes. Just like that. All right, now what I'm going to do is, I don't have any leeks, but I do have some onions, so I'm hoping that this will be still a really good soup. So now I'm going to add some onions to my soup. Just break them up a little bit. I don't want any chunks. Now the onions are going to break down So you're not going to have big chunks of onions when you can. Just like that. And I'm just eyeballing it, you guys. Like I said, I saw this recipe on YouTube and I'm just making it up as I go along. The basis of what I'm doing is what I saw, but there are some changes like the onions and how much I choose to put in the jar. I'm changing up. This is a 26-ounce jar. So a little bit bigger than what I would normally put soup in. Make sure I have roughly the same amount of onions. This spoon is just not cooperating with me. There we go. And I'm going to fill the rest of these jars up with the onions and the potatoes. Then I'm going to take them over to the other counter and fill them up with the broth. Then we're going to get them ready for the canner. I have exactly 7 jars of potato soup. And now I'm going to ladle the broth inside of the jar. Like so. And I'm going to take it up to a 1-inch headspace. And then I will follow up with the other jars. And then I'll be back when it's time to clean the rims. And that is a 1-inch headspace. So I'm going to finish off the other jars and I'll be right back. I filled my jars up to a 1-inch headspace. I have my paper towel and some distilled white vinegar off to the side. I'm going to clean off the rims of my jars. Turning my paper towel over, making sure that my rims are clean so that I can get a seal. Also making sure that I don't have any chips or anything that's going to prevent my lids from sealing. Now I'm going to get my lids. My lids have all been washed, run through the dishwasher. I did not heat my lids because you do not have to do that anymore. At least that's what the guidelines say. So I'm going to put my bands on, fingertip tight. And if my bands have problems threading, I just grab another band, because sometimes your bands can turn out a little ugly. You know, once you put them in the canner, they can be discolored. It's okay if they're not pretty, pristine, and brand new, because once you use your bands, depending on the type of water you have, fingertip tight, depending on the type of water you have, it could discolor your bands like this one. Your bands are a tool that you use to make sure that your lids are secure and that they seal. They don't have to look like diamond rings, sapphires, and rubies, but they have to be usable. If they don't thread, don't use them. Keep them clean and keep it moving. So now I'm going to get these in the canner. I could have used more potatoes, but I didn't have any more potatoes in the house to use. So I'm using what I have. I had roughly 4 to 5 potatoes go bad on me. I don't want to lose the entire 5-pound bag of potatoes. I only had those potatoes maybe 2 weeks, and I'm very disappointed in the fact that they just went rotten and funky that quickly. So to make sure that I have some food versus no food and completely waste money, I'm going to can what I have, which is what I'm doing. So I'm sure that there are going to be someone out there that says, well, your jars were not full. No, they aren't. But I still have some food on the shelf, and some is better than none. So let me finish this up and get these in the canner. Now it's time to put my jars in the canner. Now the one thing I think I did not show you was me debubbling. I did debubble. I know I did not show you me putting water in the canner. I did put 3 quarts of water in my canner. I also put a splash of vinegar in my canner. And so now I have my 7 26-ounce jars in my canner. I'm going to put my lid on and start the canning process. You've seen me done that before. I will put some clips of me doing that. So let's get started. All right, the timer has gone off. The pressure has come down. It's time to get my jars out of the canner. And if you heard that, it sounds like they're sealing. All right, your lid is going to be hot. So I recommend you use something to take your lid off other than you touching your handles with your hand, because they are going to be warm. Now, ooh, look, they are sealing. My goodness. I got this recipe on YouTube, and the young lady, she's been canning for about 30 years, so I know that she's always good about utilizing the correct USDA guidelines, so I feel confident about this. I need to move slow, y'all. Can you all see that? Beautiful, 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 beautiful. I'm going to put these on the cabinet over here off to my right. And this can be used as a soup. You can add to it and put some sausage. You can, hold on a second. You can add some kale to it. You can add cream if you want to put cream in it. The sky is the limit for this. Or you can eat it just as it is. So I'm just going to take this out slowly. Now what I have noticed is my rings loosen up some. Silly me, my microphone wasn't on. What I noticed is my rings have loosened up some. And what I was saying is that you can use this as is for soup, or you can add some kale to this. You can add some chicken, some sausage to this. The sky's the limit. You can add cream to this, or you can leave this as is. But I got this recipe off of YouTube from a lady who's been canning for roughly 30 years. She always follows the USDA guidelines, so I feel comfortable and confident that I did the right thing when I canned this. All right. Looking inside my canner, it doesn't appear that I have any siphoning, and if I do, it's minimal. So that's it for me tonight, everybody. It is very late. I'm gonna call it a night. I want to thank you for joining me in the kitchen. Let's go over to the cabinet. I want to thank you for joining me in the kitchen. I hope you have enjoyed my canning series. I still have so much more to show you all. If you like this series, do me a favor, give me a thumbs up, share my video, leave me a comment. I hope you all are subscribed, and if you're not, consider subscribing. And I hope to see you again in the next video. Bye for now.